Hi, I'm Phil Pustiowski with FreedomMentor.com, and in this video, I'm going to share with you how to choose a real estate investing mentor. It may be one of the most important decisions you make in your real estate investing career. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to ask ourselves three questions. The first question is going to be this: are you going to be a traditional or creative real estate investor? So that's number one. And if you don't know what I mean by this, I have a link in the description of the video down below, and that link will take you to some additional resources. Okay, so this is going to be an important decision for you though, because it's going to dictate which type of real estate investing mentor you want to work with. So if you are going to be a traditional investor, I am going to argue the most applicable mentor, the best mentor for you is probably going to be a local one. Okay? Here's one. A really successful local real estate investor that does the traditional investing typically is really good at a couple of things. Number one, they're really good at hiring, finding, and leading contractors that can fix properties up. Number two, they're really good at making quick decisions on real estate deals locally. Whether it's an auction or a real estate agent calls them and says, I got a great deal, you got to make an offer in an hour. And since they know the market so well locally, they know what prices are, what areas are good, what areas are bad, what houses are selling, what houses are not selling. They're so good locally that they can make a quick, insightful, instant decision. And also, they have a great team around them because they know everybody in town. And they also know where the city's going, where it's growing, where it's not growing. So as you can see, a really successful traditional investor is really good on a local level. However, if you took a great traditional investor who's very successful in their local area and you sent them 1,000 miles in the other direction, they probably wouldn't be very successful in the beginning where they were sent. Now, maybe over a long period of time they'd rebuild, but a traditional investor is really good locally. And so that's why I'm going to suggest that a local mentor is your best bet. A good example of that would be a real estate investing buyer's agent. Somebody that is really good with investors and they represent them as the buyer's agent. They'll go out and find the deals. They'll know the contractors. They'll know the closing companies. So that's a good option for you. All right, so what if you're going to be a creative investor? Well, I may surprise you here, and I'm going to tell you that your best bet is going to be a nationwide mentor. This may go against the grain a little bit because most people just think they want to go local, but I'm here to tell you that if you're going to go creative, you want to go nationwide, and here's why. First thing is this: creative investing is not locally based. In other words, most of the techniques work nationwide. And so it doesn't really matter where you're located. Now, in certain areas, certain creative techniques work better than others, but truly, creative investing is based on motivated sellers. Motivated sellers are created by situations that have nothing to do with their local environment. It could be things like divorce, death. It could be, because they have financial problems, tax problems. All those sorts of issues create motivated sellers, and motivated sellers is one of the foundations of creative investing, and that has nothing to do with local at all. Okay, the other thing that you want to keep in mind is when it comes to creative investing, the more creative you are, the more successful you are. So creativity is extremely valuable. And if you have a nationwide perspective, meaning you can see different investors, different deals from all across the country, you're going to have more good ideas. And that means more money. And finally, this is a real interesting tidbit. You need to also consider the team members you work with. When it comes to creative investing, you need specific team members that know specific things that most others don't. Like mortgage brokers that can get no title seasoning FHA loans. Or whether it's a title company who can do back-to-back closings on short sales. I mean, these are very specific things that sometimes if you're just looking through your local pool of team members, you won't find somebody there that can help you. Whereas on a national basis, you can. It happens to us all the time. We typically use national title companies and mortgage brokers for those two things specifically. All right, and then I didn't even mention the most important thing of all yet, and that is this: competition. I'm going to write this down. There is a myth in creative investing that says this: there are so many good deals out there, there's plenty to go around for everybody. Hogwash. Not true. Motivated sellers is the basis for creative investing. There's only a certain amount of motivated sellers in any one market. Of course, it's based on the size of the market, but there's only so many people getting divorced, having financial problems, going through probate kind of situations. There's only so many motivated sellers. And the more competition there is in a marketplace for that, small group of motivated sellers, the less successful other investors are going to be. So the most successful creative real estate investors in any one market are typically hush-hush about what they're doing. They don't want competitors. I'm one of them. I mentor and coach people all across America, Canada, the Caribbean, but I don't teach anybody in my own hometown. Why? Because I don't want a direct competitor right here with my techniques. But I don't mind teaching everybody across the country because they're not competing with me. It's just the people in my local area. Does that make sense? That is very, very important. Okay, so that's the first question you're asking yourself, traditional versus creative. All right, let's go to the next question. Number 2. You want somebody who is both passionate about teaching and they're successful. I have a good friend of mine who is a very successful traditional investor, and she's an agent as well. And she spent a little bit of time where she was mentoring others in the local area, and she got so fed up with teaching people that didn't follow her exact instructions, then they'd get into some problems and she'd have to get them out of those problems. She got completely tired of it. It's part of being a mentor is watching your students learn lessons the hard way. She didn't have the patience. She didn't have the passion. And so she was successful, but she wasn't passionate. So you want somebody who wants to be a teacher. But then you run into another problem, and that's this. You run into people who are passionate about teaching, but they don't know what they're talking about. They're not successful, but they love to teach. You've heard the old saying, those who can't do, teach. Well, that's where it comes from. Because some people are already passionate about teaching real estate investing, and all they've ever done is read a book. You've ever met those people before? Okay, so you're looking for somebody who is both passionate and successful. And that means that they're doing deals and that they're making money. Because all this may not be applicable to every subject in life. When it comes to making money, you can't learn to be rich by learning from people who are broke. You may want to underline that one. That's truth. Okay, so if you're working, by the way, creatively with a nationwide mentor, just be aware that they need to be successful on a nationwide basis. A little distinction there, because you can be very successful creatively on a local level, and then you may want to mentor people across the country, but it takes some time to get used to that. I know it took me years and years to get really good at it. So be aware that they need to be successful nationwide. And so how do you tell? Well, their case studies, their examples, make sure they're from different parts of the country, not all in their local area, because they might only have a kind of a small view, and they may not be creative nationwide yet. They may get there, but they're not there yet. Okay, so they need to be passionate, and they need to be successful at the same time. That's question number 2. Number 3, you want to ask yourself, what is their motivation? This is huge. So many people make this mistake. And here's how they make the mistake. They naively assume that somehow the most successful real estate investor, either nationwide or locally, is going to teach them everything they need to know just because they want to do it out of the goodness of their heart and they want to give back because they're so successful. That is not the real world. The real world is that teaching somebody how to become a successful real estate investor takes ongoing, consistent patience and persistence. There's going to be things that come up, and that person is going to have tremendous demands on their time and their energy and their mental work as well. So they need to have a significant motivation in order to work with you. And so let me give you a couple of examples of how that motivation plays out. And what I mean here is I want to put in parentheses real motivation, because some people get duped into thinking they know what the person's motivation is. Maybe they think that the person thinks they like you or something. So hey, well, the person likes me really well, that's why he's helping me out. That's not how it works in the real world. When it comes to very successful real estate investors anyways, they have specific reasons why they want to work with somebody. And it may not be exactly what you think. All right, so let's talk about an example, which is buyer's agents. Earlier I said that it would be a good idea if you were a traditional investor to get a local real estate agent, right? Well, just be aware of this motivation. Be aware that when you do a deal and you buy a property, they get a commission. But if you don't buy the property, they don't get a commission. Why is that significant? It's significant because sometimes the best decision you can make on a real estate deal is to not buy it. And so if you're asking your mentor, which is a real estate agent, should I buy this property? Should I really buy it? Their answer is going to be yes, because that's how they feed themselves. Does that make sense? I'm not saying you don't work with buyer's agents. I'm just telling you that's their motivation. So in certain cases, you have to be aware of where their framework is coming and where their advice is coming from. All right, let me give you another example. Another example has to do with local mentors who need or want your money or credit. This happens so often. What they do is this. They say, yeah, I'll teach you the business. Yeah, and it's usually for traditional. We'll teach you real estate investing the traditional way. Yeah, I'll show you how to do it. Yeah, you just bring the money to this next deal. I just found a deal. Well, you do the money, and then I'll fix it up and resell it, and I'll show you what I'm doing. Yeah, we'll do it that way. Okay, that happens all the time, and that gets people really stung. That's what stung me. The mentor before, the one that actually changed my life in real estate investing, my first mentor, he turned out to be an absolute crook. He stole money from me, stole $150,000 from a friend of mine named Mark. Mark had gotten a settlement from an accident, and he was trying to invest in real estate with that money. That guy stole the money. It was awful. He turned out to be a crook. It was terrible. Well, we should have seen some red flags. I was very naive at that point. That if somebody's really successful, they don't need your money and they don't need your credit. So if they're asking for that to do a deal together, be very, very leery of that. Does that make sense? Okay, another thing about locals, what they'll probably do if you try to to get them to do the creative angle is they'll put you in the free work model of trying to get bird dogs, which we talked about before. So be aware of that as well. All right. So the third thing I want to bring up here has to do with upfront compensation. And I should say full. Full. So maybe you've invested in a real estate mentor before, or maybe you're considering it right now. And the way that it works is they're going to charge you a certain fee up front, and then they'll be your mentor for however long. Well, let me ask you this. If you were going to hire a painter to paint your home, would you pay that painter all the money up front before they ever stroke their first paintbrush? No, right? Why wouldn't you? Well, because they'd lose their motivation, right? If you gave the contractor all his money up front, he wouldn't show up tomorrow. He's already got his money. And so if you pay all the compensation up front, what will end up happening is you will have set up a motivation whereby you've already given them all their motivation up front. So what happens if you get stuck 5 months from now? What's their motivation to help you? Well, you may say, well, Phil, the motivation is that I paid them and so they want to make good on their promises. Okay, that's true. And for some people, that is significant motivation. But I got to tell you, in the real world, that is not powerful motivation. So you want to be aware of that. Now, by the same token, let's go back to this painter's example. It doesn't mean that you pay the painter when he's finished. Maybe you give him some money up front so he can get the materials, get the job started. You pay him as you go along as work is completed, and then the final payment comes at the very end. Or maybe if you did it just stair-stepping it, your final payment was the last little leg of what they were going to do. So either way, there's a way where you can compensate for their services whereby it's not completely 100% up front before you ever get started. Does that make sense? All right, great. And I want to cap this off by talking about incentives. I believe the best way to do a real estate investing mentor relationship is to make sure that your incentives are aligned with that mentor. What I mean is this. When you succeed, they succeed. So if you're going to do a deal and you profit, they have a percentage of that profit. That way, they are committed to helping make sure you're successful on that deal so they can maximize their profit. And also, if a deal is falling apart, they can make sure they need to do to ensure the deal comes together. So aligning the motivation is huge, because that will make sure that the mentor does the very best to help you. I know that sounds kind of almost elementary, like why would somebody not give you their best? I'm just telling you the real world. This is what really happens, because most of the time, mentoring somebody is a lot more significant of responsibility than either party recognizes. And so it really takes a lot to get somebody to the point where they're super successful in some cases, especially if they don't listen, they don't follow directions. And most people act like they follow directions, but just wait till you get into the throes of a real estate deal. That's when the rubber meets the road. So I hope this has helped you. If you're going to go traditional versus creative, which, by the way, again, below this video, there's a link that'll take you to a page that gives you more resources on that, whether the person's both passionate and successful, and what their true motivation is. Because this really is one of the most important decisions you'll make in your real estate investing career, and that is who your mentor is. You heard my story, and that is in the very beginning, the first choice I made was the wrong choice. And I should have seen some red flags, but I didn't. And so hopefully you won't have to learn those mistakes the hard way. I'm Phil Pustiovsky with FreedomMentor.com. Thanks for watching this video. Check out all my other videos, and I'll talk to you soon.